I would like to call the Charter Township of Chesterfield regular Township Board meeting to order for Tuesday, September 26, 2023 at 7 p.m. to order. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Deputy Nisa, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
And Trustee Vosper.
Here.
Trustee Domingue is still on vacation. I ask that he be excused. Item 4, the approval of agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Treasurer Elliott. Deputy Nisa, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Vosper.
Aye.
And Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Item 5, presentations. There are no presentations scheduled tonight. Item 6, department reports. Any department reports? Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. Just a quick one from the library. As you know, I believe the library is working closely with the Township Board to explore the feasibility of the potential joint use at the community center. This was discussed at their monthly board meeting last week, and their plan is to work closely with a firm that they've hired for their strategic planning to look at this as a possible option moving forward. There's some meetings that the supervisors engaged in with the library officials, and they intend to look at the feasibility of the community center and then bring it back to their board at the November meeting to make some determining direction as to where the library will head. Also of note is the Friends of Chesterfield Library made a presentation to the library board last week with a check for $10,500, and it comes after a lot of volunteers and hard work, put a lot of time and energy into raising those funds through the various events that they hold over there. So a good group of people, and they seem to be trying to stay focused on what the residents want in the way of a township library. So just a quick update on that.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. Reminder that Chesterfield Fire Open House is this Sunday, October 1st from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Please join the Chesterfield Fire Department as we kick off this year's National Fire Prevention Week with our annual open house. The event will be held at Fire Station Number 3, the corner of 23 Mile Road in Baker, Sunday, October 1st from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. This free family-friendly event will feature kid activities, interactive demonstrations, refreshments, more, all while learning about your local firefighters, their tools, and their facilities. Now, for more information, call 586-725-2233. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further presentations, I will move to item 7, public comments on agenda items only. This is a 3-minute time limit.
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. On the bill run in the consent agenda, there's expenditures made to Miller Canfield again. They total $101,590. Those haven't come to the board previously for approval. It's a violation of the purchasing policy. Not only that, they're being billed to a general ledger number that currently doesn't exist on the approved budget, the 2023 approved budget. So I don't know how we're spending money, invoicing money, when we don't follow purchasing policy procedures, and we don't even have it in our approved budget. We're somehow amending budgets as we go, but the funding's not there. Also, there's $20,000 emergency repair for a splash pad, and that is in violation of purchasing policy 1.1, emergency situations, because there's supposed to be a presentation to the board immediately after the next board after this emergency. And I don't see how the emergency as it's defined in a purchasing policy qualifies for an emergency at the splash pad. It's not threatening life or property or shutting down a total department. And water, there's another one in there from facilities and operations for water damage, $9,000. That should have come to the board, probably another emergency. But we don't follow any of the policies. We're spending residents' money, and evidently the only policy that we follow right now is the one that was amended as the board rules, because somebody's going to tell me I only have 3 minutes and I won't get to make my point. But what happens when you approve the bill run is the other board members actually become accomplices to not following the policies and procedures. Accomplices. They are accomplices. They hire somebody in doing wrongdoing or something that's morally wrong. So, and that's why it happens. It happens. It'll happen again. It'll happen tomorrow. It'll happen next week. We're looking at spending $30 million, and we're trying to throw all of the process, procedures, and rules in the trash can and amend them so it just makes it easier. And for some reason, the bill run seems to get salt and peppered with all this, large amounts of money, and nobody cares. It's the residents' money, and you're supposed to be taking care of it, and nobody is. I don't know how you write a check for it, because before, if somebody made an expenditure and didn't bring the agenda item that was approved to the board into purchasing or to finance, it didn't get approved.
Thank you, sir.
That's what I said. That's the only policy you know how to,
Thank you, sir.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. Your job is to represent this community, and it's to serve the community. I want you to remember that. It's to represent and serve the community. On the bill run, I'm going to continue where Mr. LaFato left off. Under the supervisor's office, again, we've been through this several times, so eventually I believe it's going to sink in. Under Anchor Bay Chamber, there was a luncheon. Two tickets were purchased for $20 each. I'm going to assume one was for Mr. Kersten, the other one was for Ms. Garby. There were no names on the bill run, another violation. I want names on the bill run. This is taxpayers' money. I want to know who we're paying for these luncheons. Under the Macomb County Chamber, State of Mount Clemens, again, we've got another ticket for Ms. Garby for $25. Under the Selfridge-based community membership, the taxpayers paid $150 for dues with no name. Under the treasurer's office, we've got a couple Grand Traverse Resort lodging for conferences at $250.95. No names. I'm going to assume it was Kathy Elliott and Crystal that went to that. The treasurer thought she was smart. Under the Macomb County Chamber State of the Township, they showed a $50 charge. It was $25. So Kathy Elliott must have went to that with Crystal. Again, at $100 and some thousand. Are you kidding me that you're going to turn in a $50 receipt for a chamber thing? You're ridiculous, along with the supervisor. Under the Michigan Municipal Treasurer full conferences, there were 2 charges for $399 with no names. Again, the Macomb County Chamber of Athens International Ceremony, there was a $75 charge with no name. Under the Supervisor's Management Office, there was a Chamber International Ceremony charge for $75, no name. The MPPOA Annual Conference registration, $300, no name. Under the General Fund Trustees, we used to pay $160 for the trustees' cell phones. We're paying $306 now. So I'd like an explanation on that. And under the water and sewer, there was an Equinox payment. There were two of them for $48.90. And under Brandenburg, Mr. LaFata covered it, the $20,474, and there were membership dues. And under Mad Habit, there was for the supervisor's state of the township, $2,090 for the clown show that we paid the residents.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public?
I'm just going to beep on you. Hi, Mike Horton, 50393 Bauer. Two things I wanted to say is I really hope everyone comes out for the fire open house on the 1st. It'll be a really good event, and I hope everyone comes out for learning about fire safety and the important work that the fire department does in this community, as well as all firefighters throughout all of communities in this country. Sad truth was that the other day, FDNY just reported that they had their 343rd death from complications from 9/11 related illnesses, which matches the same number of firefighters that died on 9/11. So a total of 686 total, and that's a real tragedy in that instance, and that's only the fire department there. So please respect firefighters by coming out and supporting your local firefighters, as well as the firefighters that work in all communities. Thank you on that. Secondly, although this is not on the agenda, I do hope that the board will address the looming federal government shutdown and how the township will be affected in regards to if the government does shut down after the September 30th deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Again, public comments on the agenda items only. Any further comments from the public? Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. Item 8, the consent agenda. Deputy Nyza.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any of these items is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Approval of the minutes of the regular township board meeting of September 12th, 2023. Approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the finance company. And that's it.
Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Move to approve.
Motion by trustee Vosberg,
Support.
supported by treasurer Elliott.
Mr. Supervisor, I would ask that the bill run be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately.
Make the bill run item 10A. I'll make it 8A on the regular agenda. Is there continued support for that motion? Trustee Vosberg, treasurer Elliott. Deputy Nyza, would you call the roll with the removal of the bill run?
Okay.
No. Motion by trustee Vosberg, supported by treasurer Elliott, to approve the consent agenda with the removal of the bill run. Deputy Nyza.
Trustee Vosberg,
Aye.
treasurer Elliott,
Aye.
supervisor Kersten,
Aye.
trustee Anderson,
Aye.
and trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Item 9, public hearings. There are no public hearings scheduled. We will move to the regular agenda. We will pick up with the consent agenda, approval of the bills, item 8B, as the first agenda item. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We heard from a few speakers regarding a couple of items on the bill run. I, too, am a little concerned about the ever-growing addition to the bill run that seems to violate our purchasing policy. So when we have expenses that are deemed an emergency by nature of $20,000, why aren't they brought to the board? And I'm assuming, because I had some conversation with Mr. Siebert regarding the tens of thousands of dollars that go to Miller Canfield, that was in preparation of the bonds. And in discussion with Mr. Siebert, what I was advised was that in the resolution, there was a bit of a catch-all, if you will, that covered fees associated with the, I know we got the notice that the bond rating had improved, but not really a notice that we had spent $26,000 as an application for that bond rating approval, and no discussion at all about whether or not and how much the bond rating approval could save us in interest. So I'm curious to know why these items continue to be withheld, and specifically I understand the payments that one speaker talked about with, the free lunches that are never ending. I know that will continue, and there's really no changing that. But specifically to the Miller Canfield, I'm wondering why it wasn't brought to the board to talk about the benefit of a rating review and how and what that would have saved us in interest. It just sort of gets added on, and also the emergency issue not being addressed by the board at all with regard to the splash pad.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the board? Any further questions from the board? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve the bill run as presented under 8B as presented. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Treasurer Elliott. Deputy Nys, would you call the roll?
Supervisor.
Point of information, Mr. Supervisor, there's no interest in answering any of the questions were posed?
No, because they've been asked and answered.
Oh, the splash pad has been answered?
Yes.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
When was that?
I don't recall the specific meeting.
Because it never happened. It happened in your imagination.
Okay.
That's okay. You'll be accountable one day.
Okay. Deputy Nys.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Nope.
Trustee Joseph.
Hell no.
And Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Regular agenda, item 10A. Deputy Nys.
Item 10A, adopt proclamation number 2023-08 to recognize October 8th through October 14th, 2023 as National Fire Prevention Week.
So moved.
Support.
Deputy Nys, you want to read the proclamation?
Sure.
There is a motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Trustee Anderson, to approve the resolution. If you would, Deputy Nys, please read it.
Sure. National Fire Prevention Week proclamation. On behalf of the people of the Charter Township of Chesterfield, Macomb County, State of Michigan, the Chesterfield Township Board of Trustees do hereby proclaim October 8th through October 14th, 2023 as Fire Prevention Week. Whereas National Fire Prevention Week is observed in the United States and Canada during the week from Sunday to Saturday, in which October 9th falls commemorating the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. In 1920, the first National Fire Prevention Day proclamation was issued by President Woodrow Wilson to mark the anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 and keep the public informed about the importance of fire prevention. President Calvin Coolidge proclaimed the first National Fire Prevention Week on October 4th through 10th, 1925, noting that in the previous year, some 15,000 lives were lost to the fire in the United States. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire, the citizens of Chesterfield Township should be sure everyone in their home understands the sounds of alarms and knows how to respond. And residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their fire department, and that the members of our fire department are committed to ensuring the safety and security of all citizens of Chesterfield Township and recognizing their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property. And now therefore, the Chesterfield Township Board of Trustees do hereby proclaim October 8th through October 14th, 2023 as National Fire Prevention Week.
Thank you, Deputy Nyza. Any comments from the board? I have a motion by trustee motion by trustee Joseph, supported by trustee Anderson, to approve the proclamation as read. Deputy Nyza.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
And Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Item 10B.
To approve a recommendation by the Parks and Recreation Department to approve the DaySmart Recreation Upgrade Contract to begin services with DaySmart, allowing continued recreational software services.
Do I have a motion to approve the request? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve the request. Is there support? Supported by Treasurer Elliott. Director Anderson, floor is yours.
Thank you. So the time has come to get new recreation software. The software that we've had since 2015, that company a couple months ago got bought out by a new company. We've done our research, looked at 3 separate companies, had those come in person to do a presentation on all the functionality, the features, along with the cost of each program. We took all factors into account, and for us, DaySmart's the best choice. It'll allow us to continue the existing functions that we have, as well as add additional functionalities and features that we were hoping for or wanting in a recreation software. Those will switch over into the new one. For us, the recreation software allows us to register for programs. It allows the customers to have a better experience on their side of things, being able to do online program registration as well. And then on the data side, on our internal in-house side, we were able to see data from the programs that we do and people that we service. We can track a specific program, a specific age group, a chunk of the year, or several years of usage that we have. So I do have here with us Dale Geiger. He was our software support system, or support in RecPro. He is transitioning with the company and continuing through to DaySmart, which again is the level of comfortability that we have, as the technical support was fantastic. So anything you want to add, Dale? Feel free.
Thanks. Dale Geiger. I actually live in Clay Township, but I am with DaySmart Recreation, as Michelle mentioned. Our company RecPro software was acquired by DaySmart, and I'm continuing on with servicing all the clients that I have over the years. As Michelle mentioned, the DaySmart Rec application is much more up to date than our RecPro one was. It is web-based, so the Parks and Rec department will have more portability, being able to use tablets and phones for summer camps, facility rentals, leagues. If they're out in the field, they'll be able to access the system a lot easier than they were with the system that they currently have. Also, some other conveniences for your residents. There is communication by text message now, so if there are any cancellations or last-minute changes, Michelle and her staff will be able to text the residents any of those changes. Right now, it's just email, but now they'll have the ability to text, and several other conveniences as well for your residents.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, just curious, why not to include the amount of the contract in the executive summary?
So I included the packet that are you talking about the DaySmart program?
Yeah, I have the packet, and I can see inside the packet, the contract calls for 6,000 year 1, 2, and 3 incremental increases of a small nominal amount each year, with the first year being 6,120. I'm just wondering why not include the cost of the contract in the executive summary?
I felt it was a comprehensive packet, and that entire packet's presented to the board. So
Yeah, no, I go through the packet. I don't know that residents do, and I think, I know you don't report to me, but as we move forward with the expansion of Parks and Rec, I think residents will rightfully look at what does Parks and Rec cost the township. It is a general fund item, and there could be substantial general fund, help, I guess, to cover the community center, maybe a purchase. I think it might be good practice to just be very clear in the executive summary so that residents can see and it's instantly known what it is that we're investing, and they're investing in Parks and Rec. But I appreciate the presentation and the packet and the representative from DaySmart coming in and adding it. So I believe it's good software and serves our residents well. Just, I think, full transparency, the easier they can see that number, the better, at least for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Thank you, Michelle. I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10B. Deputy Niza.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
And Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Item 10C.
Item 10C, to approve a recommendation by the Department of Public Safety to enter into a 3-year training agreement with Virtual Academy in the amount of $11,600, beginning 11/28/2023 through 11/27/2026.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there support? Support by Trustee Anderson. Director Bassett, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm here before you asking for a authorization to enter into a contract with Virtual Academy. This is something that we have used with the extensive training, especially with accreditation that we are doing on a regular basis. This allows us to have our officers at all times of the day and evening participate in some of this virtual training that we were able to get through this. With doing the 3-year, we were able to get some cost savings for the township. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the board? Seeing none, I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Anderson, to approve item 10C. Deputy Niza.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
And Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Thank you, Director. Next one, item 10D.
To approve a recommendation by the Department of Public Safety to enter into a new 5-year lease contract with Flock Safety for five Flock Safety Falcon license plate readers at a total contract cost of $62,500, with $12,500 being billed annually. The 5-year term will run from 11/16/2023 to 11/15/2028.
Move to approve.
Motion by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Treasurer Elliott.
Support.
I'm sorry, did I get that wrong, or is it good enough? Director Bassett.
I'm here requesting approval to enter into a 5-year contract with Flock. Flock has continued to be a useful investigative tool for us throughout the township. In working with them, they were willing to guarantee the existing price if we were willing to do a 5-year contract, and that's what I have before you this evening.
Questions or comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, Chief, I was wondering, I'm sorry, Director Bassett, I was wondering if you could give us an update on how the township or the public safety team has benefited from the existing flock cameras, and have they come into play in any areas of, critical need? And if so, could you talk about, a couple of the highlights?
So, yeah, I appreciate the questions. They've been useful for us, but also useful for the entire law enforcement community, and I'll talk about that. What this allows us, as Flock continues to expand throughout the law enforcement community, those agencies are then sharing with, we have, Shelby Township, Sterling Heights, Warren, all of these agencies, New Baltimore, I don't want to forget to mention our neighbors, are entering into these so that we not only have all of the information that we gain from our own borders, but we can also gain information from all of those. So when, we've used this a number of times within the last year on retail frauds. Within the last year and a half, we used this on a missing child that was within our own township, and we were able to shorten the time frame when he was last seen in a vehicle, and eventually we were able to find that young man. It's been a very useful tool, and again, I only see the value increasing as more and more communities start to bring on Flock and the Flock system, because then we'll have access to even more data where we can enter a plate, someone who's been involved in an incident, whether it's a hit and run or something else, we can enter that, and anywhere that that plate ends up driving, if it has a Flock camera, it will activate for us and then make that notification. So I see it as a invaluable tool.
So just as a quick follow-up to that, residents that might be concerned that we have a network of cameras that are just out there, Big Brother, this is not the case. What you're really doing with these cameras are activating on an emergency response, and you referenced kidnapping or abductions. I would imagine that if you could track somebody in a neighboring community, as you say, they come online, you potentially could avoid very dangerous high-speed chases and more strategically get apprehension units a little bit on down the path if you have a camera hit. And these are really designed for be on the lookout type scenarios. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, and to that point, this has to be information that we enter into the system. As I said, specifically we're looking for this license plate, and we have to actually enter that in. This is not something that is randomly collecting data. It's not designed to do that, and we would not use it in that way.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a motion by trustee Vosberg, supported by treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10D. Deputy Nyza.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Item 10E.
To approve the one-time activation fee from the state of Michigan as a part of the Motorola Radio Dispatch project in the amount of $23,500 for 94 radios.
Again, Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there
Support.
support? Supported by trustee Vosberg. Director, again, the floor is yours.
So this has been, throughout the year, we've been working on updating some of our behind-the-scenes technology in dispatch and throughout the agency. This request will allow us to enter into the state system all of our new equipment, as well as all of that equipment being encrypted. And that was the fee that you see before you.
Director, this also activates the emergency alert call buttons.
Correct.
Through our center. Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Director Bassett, does this 94 radios include multiple radios for the supervisor, his office, his car, or any personal use?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10E. Deputy Nyza.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 11. Thank you, Director. Item 11, addendums. There are none. Item 12, public comments. There is a 3-minute time limit. If you are interested, please state your name for the record, and the clock will begin when you begin to speak. Public comment section.
Good evening, Mike Grainer, 26175 Jack Grove Lane. First of all, thinking about the fire department for a minute, I just kind of recall that on one occasion I had my carbon monoxide detector go off, and I'm kind of panicked. I've never had that happen before. So fire department came out, I called, they came out, checked it out, found out it was an old one, needed to be replaced. And they kind of looked around, they ended up replacing some smoke alarms, and I was really impressed with the way they just kind of double-checked what other fire issues there might have been. So I thought that was terrific, so thank you. The other things, I want to thank the township for providing a couple of lawnmowers to clean up a mess we had there on Gratiot Avenue. They were very good about coming out and taking care of some very high weeds and grass, so I want to thank them for doing that as well. But after, otherwise, after I started, what really got me started on the meetings here was this opportunity to investigate the bus stop business. So everybody knows I'm Mike, the bus stop guy, right? So the main thing that I discovered, and the most important thing, and I think we might have made a little progress, the main concern everybody expressed was how dirty they were and blah, blah, blah. And there were a lot of compliments about the appearance of those. And so I think I've addressed those in many ways. I was a little disappointed when they made me throw away the shelters, which were meant to be temporary until we get some final ones. But anyway, that happened, that's over with, so I'm still trying to help that issue a little bit. But the important thing is trying to provide transportation to businesses that have a lot of openings, but they can't fill them because, you know, if you're making 11, 12, 13 bucks an hour, you know, you don't generally drive up in your SUV. You hope that you have bus service. I did find out, because I wasn't familiar with the bus service, I found out that leading up to the pandemic, there was service from 23 to New Baltimore. And in talking to a lot of the bus riders, they were really happy with that because that helped a lot. But I think mainly because of the pandemic, that kind of went away, and it never came back. And so as I started questioning the riders about their jobs and so on and so forth, I went to a couple of employment agencies, and I mentioned that to one of the gals, and oh my goodness, she jumped all over me. I don't think I told the story before. So she said, I want to hear about bus stops. I'm never going to vote for the millage again. And I said, well, what's the problem? She said, well, I could hire 75 or 80 people tomorrow. And these would be 18, 19, 20 bucks an hour. Oh my goodness, is that right?
Time's up. Thank you for your comments, though.
Good follow-up from Smart. We're going to make it happen.
Thank you.
My name's Janice Young, Yorkshire. I'm not surprised by the agenda tonight that there is several board members not here. That leads me to believe that in October 10th, that meeting is going to be a pretty heavy meeting. And with only 3 minutes to address those items, I just want to thank you again for muzzling the residents, Supervisor Kersten. I also want to address you, Supervisor Kersten. After the last meeting, you were overheard telling another resident that I have an agenda. That resident actually texted me and confirmed that. So I just wanted to ask you specifically, if you want to look at me while I'm talking to you, I don't know if you want to do that, what agenda you think I have. Are you spreading rumors or lies? Are you trying to discredit me for some reason? Why would you even talk about me? You won't talk to me. You've addressed me literally one time in 9 months since I've been coming here, and that was about the ARPA funds early on when I sat over there. But you're right, I do have an agenda, and I've made it crystal clear for quite some time now, but you don't really pay attention to that, so let me spell it out for you again. I'm here as a resident who's taking an active interest in her local government and how it affects my life and my home. I'm here to learn and to have my voice heard, and I'm also here to help inform the residents what goes on here and the decisions that this board makes for them. I'm not telling anybody who to vote for or who to vote against. The township residents are very capable of doing that. They're smarter than you think they are. I want to inform the residents so that come election time next year, they can make an informed vote, because that's where our power is truly at. I encourage the residents to attend firsthand to see what goes on here, so they can see your demeanor or in the fact that you don't pay attention when residents are up here. You look at the speakers that come here, make presentations, and you watch them the entire time, and you just sit there doing whatever up there. And I do watch you. I watch all of you, and a good number of you look disinterested most of the time. You've also mentioned before that you wanted to model our meetings after other townships by limiting the time that we can speak. If you're going to do that, why don't you model after them and not shut people's microphones off at 3 minutes? That is rude, and it's just physically silencing the residents by doing that. And while we're on the topic of microphones, I was referred back to another township meeting on my citizen request, and I watched a couple of the meetings today, and there were several times that you couldn't be heard because your microphone wasn't turned on. So I was referred back to a meeting, and I couldn't hear your comments in that meeting. So now I resubmitted my citizen request to hopefully get an answer to what I was asking. And on that note, I guess that's it for tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. Supervisor Kersten, Treasurer Elliott, Chesterfield is now pay to play with you two. On one of the websites, I came across Kathy Elliott engages with a resident and says, why use a fake profile? You are engaging in dirty politics and intimidation. Well, the only dirty politics and intimidation that I remember from Kathy Elliott was against myself and the former treasurer, Mr. LaFata, on a false police report that she filed against Mr. LaFata, if we want to talk about dirty politics and intimidation. Also, it's come to my attention that there have been several contributions and donations made to Brad Kersten and Kathy Elliott, the same donors. One of the resident in particular points out on the an issue being with Mr. Seberg, which is our attorney, making donations to our elected officials, which the resident believes is unethical. I'm going to agree with that. That should end. The other issue that came up is with cannabis. Supervisor Kersten and Kathy Elliott ran hard against being against cannabis. So, and now they're in bed with cannabis. So we've got donations from Mr. Starvels to both elected officials. We've got donations from Mr. Arbel to both elected officials. We've got a building going up at Mach speed in Chesterfield by Tim Hortons there. I didn't see any plans, any engineering plans, any site plans. I didn't see anything come before planning. And Mr. Starvels just got the approval a month ago for it. So I guess if you donate to elected officials, we can bypass everything and we can just go Mach speed on everything. The donations are extremely troubling. I mean, there's a direct link. There's even a direct link to the digital sign between Mr. Kersten and Kathy Elliott on donations made to their campaigns. So that digital sign, this board approved a 30-year contract with the extension of 20 years on our property, and all we get is $2,000 for each side for a total of $4,000. We get 8 seconds for every 80 seconds, while the billboard individual is going to make millions on the Chesterfield. It's complete insanity on what goes on here. You guys need to be voted out next year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Christopher Pierrick, Chesterfield. I came to my very first board meeting, attended it at the end of May, and during the public comments portion of the meeting, I did come up here and I said a lot of residents make comments at this podium, and they also ask questions. And I was told that some of those questions and comments get addressed when it comes to the board comments at the end of the meeting. That is very limited now because the board only has 3 minutes to talk, and to answer all the questions or comment on the comments is pretty unrealistic. Last meeting, I made a comment at the end of my opportunity to say that I'll just keep my mouth shut. And I was being sarcastic with it, but today I'm not being sarcastic because that's what we're being forced to do. There was a question brought up by one of the board members about the money for the splash pad, and that's not even addressed. May have been addressed on your side, but the residents would like to hear how that decision was made to spend that money without going through the board. So I guess we're just going to have to keep our mouths shut, and apparently that goes for you too, Trustee Joseph, because you're not allowed to talk either. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nancy Hutchinson, 49525 Callens Road. I attended my first planning meeting last Tuesday, and I have to tell you, it was quite a breath of fresh air. There were a lot of residents up here, these same folks who are speaking here today, who had questions and concerns. And the board chairman, I don't know if it's a chairman, the person in charge, not only let the person finish their sentence, but let them finish their thought, even though they were on a time limit. Questions we asked were answered. I see Ms. Vosberg looking at me. I see Mr. Joseph. I see Mr. Anderson. Ms. Elliott, you didn't look up until I mentioned it. Mr. Kersten, you either. Like I told Ms. Elliott, Ms. Vosberg last time, this is our time to get in front of your faces, to have you look at us. And I know you've been at planning meetings, but it truly was a breath of fresh air, as opposed to this mess.
Thank you, ma'am.
Paul LaFata. Township supervisor has a budget to operate within, and he has policies and procedures to follow. Supervisor Kersten, you're doing neither. You don't follow the budget that was approved, the 2023 budget that was approved. There's no amendment posted to that budget, and there's new general ledger numbers, and they're making payments that go on the bill run for over $100 and some odd thousand more, about $150,000 to date. And this is the residents' money being spent on putting the residents in debt for $14 million. And for the biggest chunk of the $14 million is 8-point-some million for a sewer line that isn't going to benefit the residents. It's the worst time in the economic history of the United States to be borrowing money. It's the highest interest rate since 2000. And you have accomplices that just help promote your wrongdoing. And it's Trustee Vosberg, Treasurer Elliott, and Trustee DeMink. You are accomplices, because what should come out and be approved, which should be transparent to the residents, is being littered into the bill run, so nobody's supposed to see it. And you violated purchasing policy 1.7, 1.1, and it doesn't matter. Where's the ethics that Trustee Vosberg insisted on years ago? There are no ethics. This is becoming a dictatorship. Sad to say, I have no trust in my local government, and I will do everything I can. Before I have my first cup of coffee tomorrow, I'll zip off another letter to the editor explaining how we spend the residents' money. It's the residents' money, it's not yours. It used to be when something was spent, and it was over $5,000, if it didn't go into finance with an agenda item approved by the board, it didn't get paid because I sent it back. Now we just spend the residents' money, and we get prune faces from people because they look at me like I'm just babbling, but it's the truth. You don't follow your own policies. You're not ethical. And it's bad for the residents. You're not moving the residents forward. You're looking at spending $30 million between projects and repairs for North Gratiot Interceptor, and you're throwing the purchasing policy checks and balances in the wastebasket. It's unheard of. You wouldn't do that with your own money. You wouldn't keep writing checks on your own account until you bounced checks and wound up in jail.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
I'll try to be brief on this. I just want to point out, in the scope of, or span of a week, we had basically a tale of 3 meetings here. 2 weeks ago, the Tuesday meeting, which was the first one, having the rules enforced about the 3-minute rules for comments. 2 days after that was the flood hearing held in this room, which was pretty packed and seemed to go off with a relatively good hitch. A few people did talk a little longer than probably should have, but there was no time limit, and everybody was, they kind of patrolled themselves, they policed themselves, and the meeting got through pretty relatively good. And I'm assuming it was a lot of times, for those people, it was their first time ever public speaking, or public speaking in a long time. So they weren't, they weren't like the usuals that talk up here. And they presented themselves very formally and very good. And it worked pretty well for the community and the people that did show up for it. Then last Tuesday, like Nancy had mentioned, was the Planning Commission meeting, which, again, residents came up, spoke their turn, and the Planning Commission responded in kind. They didn't forcibly cut everybody off. They didn't, strictly enforce arbitrary rules that make no sense whatsoever. There was no issue with what we had before. Bless you. There was no problem with that. And, it's very difficult to say everything you want to say in 3 minutes time, especially if that's the only thing you get to say. If you could take anything from this meeting tonight, say, okay, if you want to keep on enforcing these rules, fine. But you know what? Maybe bring it back to 5 minutes for everyone, because 5 minutes is better than 3. Not everybody needs to speak on every issue, but if you're willing to cut down to 3, what's to say you're not willing to cut it down to 2 or 1 or 0 in the future? You don't want dissent? Fine. But if you make peaceful revolution impossible, the other kind of revolution is inevitable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments? Seeing no further comments, I'll bring it back to the board. Board comments. I will start with Trustee Anderson.
Mr. Wharton, you got a good idea, but don't hold your breath. Okay. U.S. Constitution, Amendment number 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress or grievances. What is that in simple terms? First Amendment provides that Congress make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting its free exercise. It protects freedom of speech, the press, assembly, and the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The majority of this board has legislatively limited you to a minimum minutia of comments or participation to just 3 minutes at the genesis of the meeting and 3 minutes at its conclusion. They want to have a business-style meeting from item to item without any of your input. Many of their deliberations, good or bad, will have a direct impact on your quality of life in Chesterfield, as well as the resulting expenses and costs. Final thought, continue to monitor the conduct, outcomes, and decisions of your local government. And an afterthought, Mr. LaFata, you had some good points. Future boards will probably be digging out the financial madness that's going on now, and I'll let it go right there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. All right, so that was a 20-second adjustment. I'd like my time to reflect that. I'll start, Mr. Rayner. I appreciate all your work over at the car wash, also on the bus stops. I don't know how much time I have, but I'm really sad that you keep coming up and you get no support on the smart communication. We have thousands of dollars that we pay a lobbying firm, and the township supervisor has about 5 assistants by my last count, and you seem to get nowhere with smart. So why don't we get together after? I'll find out where you left off. I'll start making some calls. We'll see where we can go. Also, the check that you left for me to help offset the cost. It was addressed in our bill run that we spent $2,000 for the supervisor to host some kind of event, and we couldn't get our video team to record the September 14th meeting. So I paid for it out of my pocket. I shared that in your check. I appreciate it, but I will be making a donation to Gilda's House for double the amount of the check, and I'm going to commemorate the September 1st, 2016 date in your wife Anita's honor. You know that takes 10 seconds away from me, right? So, Ms. Young, you are muzzled, as is everybody else, but he'll never talk to you face to face because that's not how he operates. So, don't take issue with that. Mr. Spiga, I can address some of your pay-to-play allegations. I happen to disagree with you on a few of them, but I will stay after the meeting and discuss those at length. Mr. Barrett, your sarcasm was I was giggling, and I looked over, and they missed it. They don't get when they're insulted, so it's okay. I understood exactly where you were coming from. Ms. Hutchinson, a lot of residents were allowed to speak because Mr. Miller knows how to chair a meeting. You might not always agree with the decision, but you'll always be heard over there. Quick update, Officer Baker continues to do well, and he is awaiting word from MCOLS for his recertification. He's launched a new website, and he is very positive and very anxious to get back. Unfortunately, we're going to have to undo some paperwork that was done. And the last thing I just wanted to mention with regard to, while I'm on the track of public safety, we have not received any updates in closed session regarding the contract with our firefighters, but they saved the police department many years ago, and to see them treated so poorly by the supervisor, who seems to have a vindictive way about him that permeates personal relationships and organizations. But if we could get an update in closed session on the contracts, I know our HR department is in shambles, but I don't know how many more thousands and thousands of dollars we're going to spend awaiting to go to arbitration without any board updates, and we're in a dire situation there. And I would appreciate a board update. Thank you.
Trustee Vosper.
Thank you. I don't have any comments tonight.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. So when I'm here, this is all of my notes that I take. So my notes for public comments start off with Mr. Rayner and his acknowledgement of the fire department, and I know that's important to him, and the bus stops and 23-mile bus service and Smart Bus. Janice Young, and talking about that she's an active resident, Mr. Spica, and he doesn't have anything nice to say to me and hasn't for years, and that's okay. And Christopher, and your concern with your addressing the comments, Mrs. Hutchinson, and your comments on the planning meeting, and the fact that I didn't look up at you because I was writing notes and then looked up at you, and it's hard for you to see that because there's a wall here. Mr. LaFata has always expressed concerns about the budget and the general ledger. Mr. Wharton talked about the scope of meetings, and he suggested 5 minutes at the end of the meetings. Mr. Anderson spoke about his passion about freedom of speech, and I want to commend Mr. Joseph for committing to donate to Gilda's House. It's a very, very wonderful organization. And other than that, I will say that when you're here looking at us and trying to read body language, understand that you don't see that we're maybe writing, and I know Trustee Joseph is often writing as well. So, understand that there's things that you don't see us doing up here, and it's not to be disrespectful to anybody. It's just the matter of writing notes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make my comments quick. Chesterfield Township had a very busy summer with events that were extremely successful. Both township sponsored events and community sponsors events. One of the biggest that we've had success with was the North Gratiot Cruise presented by the Gratiot Chamber, our Bassmasters Tournament, and also the Parks and Rec programming that has expanded substantially.
As was previously mentioned by Trustee Anderson, the Fire Department Open House will be one of the end-of-the-year closeouts, and then Parks and Rec has a Halloween program that is coming. In regards to SMART, we have been meeting with them, and we've had long conversations with them, and it's a very difficult group to get involved in, and yes, we've been involved with them at all layers and all levels. There is a ridership participation survey that we have agreed to participate with them in order to get some activities and actions from them. And we hope that that takes place in October, and again, we will participate with whatever they need to improve the services here in the township. Just some updates on the purchase request for the Anchor Bay School. We had our final meeting with them. It was, we've come to terms with them. It's now, we're going to get the attorneys involved, draft up a purchase agreement. Hope to close that out relatively soon. We'll get both Mr. Siebert and the school labor council involved, and we'll present a package back to the board. I am planning on providing a presentation in regards to the flooding rains that occurred at the next board meeting. It's a matter of coordinating with the individuals who are responsible and the actions that the township can take in the areas specifically of what we control. And again, that will hopefully be at the next October 10th board meeting. Along with, heads up, there will be a planned closed session to discuss the status of labor agreements, the lone labor agreement that is left. And then my final comments on campaign finance to the individual that spoke to that, don't just look up one, look at them all. Don't isolate one. It's funny that, please be quiet. Nobody interrupted you. Nobody interrupted you. Look at them all. Don't just isolate on one. Hate the game, don't hate the players. Yeah. So with that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:02. Trustee Lossberg, supported by Treasurer Elliott. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.